Thank you, Sylvia. Please welcome Sylvia Wehrs from the Columbus Symphony Orchestra, a close friend of Whittaker Locke, our pianist, who is helping us this morning. And that was Whittaker on piano as well, along with Sylvia. So we have the virtual and real together. Please welcome Sylvia. That was fantastic. Thank you. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Columbus, an inclusive spiritual community of people who support each other in their personal search for truth and meaning. I'm Rick Spradlin. I'll be your service leader this morning, and also later on I'll be presenting our program, which this Sunday will be entitled Father's Day 2021. Normally, when you think about the word father, you're referring to your biological father, the man who donated half of the genetic material used to conjure your being. In that ineffable chemistry, we're usually just referred to as the birds and the bees. But helping to cause your arrival into this world and helping you to navigate it, in some sense, make sense of it, are two entirely different things. A man can become a father just by giving in to the powerful urges of biology, with or without any thoughts of your arrival. But for that other, more long-standing, more intentional job, we usually reserve the title Dad. Dads can come from many different places. Some come to us in exactly the same way as our fathers, as mine did. Others come from different family relations, such as uncles, older brothers, grandfathers. Still others come from entirely outside the family tree. Neighbors, teachers, coaches. A dad can be loosely defined as a male figure that you look up to and in return actually cares about you, guides you, is there to support you in all the most important and trying times in your life. For decades, sociologists have published studies on the importance of the mother and child relationship. In recent years, they've begun to play catch-up in the importance of dads. They're calling it the dad effect. It turns out that fathers can have a profound effect on their offspring right from the beginning. While we tend to stress the importance of mothers avoiding drugs and alcohol while conceiving, to prevent genetic damage to their eggs, and especially while pregnant, we now know the decisions a man makes before conception can have long-time impacts on the child. Studies suggest that men who binge drink before conception are more likely to have kids who abuse alcohol, and it increases the likelihood of the child having congenital heart disease. Even poor dietary choices in men can lead to negative pregnancy outcomes. Thanks to current research, we now know that the nutritional, hormonal, and psychological environment provided by the father has the same permanent alteration of a child's organ structure, cellular response, and gene expression in their offspring as the mother. Until the 1960s, experts usually didn't encourage dads to take part in parenting classes, or participate during labor, or even care for infants. It was generally believed that mothers were better suited for these tasks, and that fathers should just stay out of the way. Fathers could help teach the child to walk and teach the child to play catch if it was a son, but they were discouraged from handling baby stuff. But the past few decades of research suggest that the earlier a dad gets involved, the better. In a 1997 book on the subject, researchers argued that fathers who are actively involved in labor are effectively building a relationship with their children that can lead to a stronger early attachment to the baby. It has also been shown that the more involved the father is before birth, the more involved they tend to be with the child for the rest of their life. Studies show that when fatherhood is taken seriously, children with an engaged dad are less likely to drop out of school or wind up in jail compared to children with absent fathers or no male figure to carry out that role. When children have close relationships with father figures, they tend to avoid high-risk behaviors, and they're less likely to engage in sex at a young age. They're more likely to have high-paying jobs and healthy, stable relationships when they grow up. They also tend to have higher IQ scores by the age of 3 and have fewer psychological problems throughout their lives. And it isn't absolutely necessary that the dad figure be the biological father, although it is helpful. The important thing is that a child be surrounded by caring adults, which is good news, considering the changing landscape of the American family. According to the Pew Research Center, in 2014, 46% of American families consisted of two parents who were in their first marriage. Compare that to 1960, when that figure was 73%. As a result of these changes, there is no longer one dominant family form in the United States. U.S. parents today are raising their children against a backdrop of increasingly diverse and consistently evolving family structures. Fatherhood has also changed considerably over the years. During the colonial times, fathers had little to do with their children other than feeding them and disciplining them. And once they were old enough, we fathers taught kids the trade, whatever trade we had. Children were expected to fulfill certain roles at home. There wasn't much time to just be a kid. After the Civil War, many children went to work in factories. Fatherhood wasn't all that different than before, but families themselves were a little bit smaller. There were fewer people living in agrarian family farms, so the average size of children, number of children, went from 6 down to 3. It was after World War II that fatherhood began to split up into two camps, the traditionalists and the conceptualists. The newer conceptual fathers tended to be the ones with a more high-skilled trade, earning just a little bit higher income. In addition to ensuring their children's discipline, they were also concerned with the more subjective development of their children, their emotional development, their social interaction, and their citizenship. Now skip ahead to today, and fathers find themselves in a world where gender equality is becoming more of a reality. We're not expected to be the lone breadwinner, and couples are increasingly swapping traditional roles, allowing fathers to stay at home, get the children up and ready for school, run them around their various daily activities, get involved in PTA meetings, do their share of laundry, grocery shopping, and even cooking. Parenting is more subjective now in terms of who fulfills which assignments of child rearing. Parents are able to work together as a team more than ever before. Modern life has allowed children to be children longer, and it's also allowed fathers to retain some of those childlike characteristics. We modern men behave differently than our grandfathers and great-grandfathers. We're more free to be playful. We're allowed to show more emotions. We're allowed to be considerate of our own feelings. Men are allowed to obsess over things such as movies or video games, which were once considered the sole domain of children. This can be a good thing if we don't allow it to become too addictive, because it can bridge the gap between what we and our children take as an interest. Fathers today are sharing hobbies with their children, whereas hobbies were once used to get away from our families. Children are more empowered today to explore entrepreneurial projects that once would have been considered insulting to the father's role as breadwinner. Now, what does all this mean for the modern father? Well, are there any downsides to this? Well, there can be. But the fact that the boundaries between adult and child are growing smaller doesn't mean that fathers can allow their children to run free and undisciplined. We fathers still have many obligations to fulfill and take care of our children and ensure that they grow up right. We have to be there with all of our hats, ready to serve as a role model, teacher, mentor, counselor, and now perhaps more than ever in history, we can be a friend that they can trust. Fatherhood has changed over the years, but that doesn't mean it's any easier. It just happens to be a little more fun. Thank you for listening.